Welcome to Woman on Her Path. Every woman has her own unique path. But what does that mean? How does said woman know what her path is? How does she find the courage to follow her path? I am your host, Tiffany Cooper. I am a mother, energy worker, community herbalist, and bhakti yogi. By sharing my experiences and insights on my path, I hope to inspire and encourage you on yours. When we follow our path, we find the answers we need in life. Let's find answers together and create a better world for ourselves and those around us. Well, hello, beautiful. How was your week? Did you get up to anything interesting this week? If you're here in the U.S., you most likely celebrated the 4th of July, the day when we cheer ourselves for the birth of independence. We celebrate that day in 1776 when the Continental Congress voted to adopt the Declaration of Independence, freeing us of the colonial rule of Great Britain and King George III. Now, of course, the Revolutionary War continued until 1781, when the French government, yes, French government, actually sent troops over to help the colonists fight in 1778. And in 1781, those French troops helped the colonists defeat the British Army, causing them to surrender, bringing the beginning of the end of the Revolutionary War. Now, the war formally ended in 1783, but without that defeat in 1781, it may have gone along longer or may have ended very differently. We were the first to break free of British rule, but certainly not the last, and there are even more countries trying to gain independence as I speak. So, what did you do for the 4th? Gather with friends and family for a cookout? Did you go to a parade? I'm sure you watched fireworks. Well, I have to admit that I had a very quiet day. It was actually a lovely day. I taught a yoga class that morning and then went for a nice stroll along the canal with a friend. All week, I have been thinking about independence and what it truly means to me. In fact, whenever I think of the word independence, the very next word that comes along is woman. For me, independence and woman are interwoven. It is a very important concept to me, independent woman. To me, it's so important for a woman to actually realize and experience her independence. For a woman, independence is an interesting and often complicated topic. This is the year 2023. But women are still facing a lot of the same issues that we had before we gained the right to vote. I'm sorry, I know that is technically a proper way to say it. We gained the right. But rights are inherently ours. They're not for us to gain. They're actually for us to sadly uncover. In one sense, we are born with all the rights we need to survive in this world that should not be governed by any other human being. But then humans have created structures that literally tell us what we can and cannot do in life, which are said to stem from the rights we are born with, the rights that were given to us by the divine. And sacred texts of many spiritual practices spell out what we have the right to. You know, Moses was shown those tablets. Through oral tradition, myths and stories that were passed down, telling us how we got here and how we are to behave with the rights we were given. But over time, more and more controls have been placed on our rights. So independence, the forming of the United States of America was decolonization. Rather than be a colony of a government and land so far away in distance and in culture, the people of those 13 colonies decided that they would fight to form their own nation. On top of the nations that already existed that were formed by the natives of this land, in the act of decolonizing from Great Britain, in so many ways, they tried to colonize native people by robbing them of their lands, demeaning their spirituality, and assimilating them. But that's a whole nother podcast episode. Declaring the idea of America was decolonization on paper, but to decolonize in thought and action are totally different things. Here we are 247 years later, and we are still living with colonizational, yes, I'm making up a word here, colonizational mindset of dominance and control, greed and excess, competition and manipulation. We need to decolonize not just our physical environment, but most importantly, our mental environment. Learn about the ways of any indigenous culture, and you will see that there is a more evolved perspective on how to coexist on this planet with other living beings. Most indigenous cultures are aware of our connection to and dependence on the planet in which we live. They have respect for other living beings and the land on which we all live. Most of them understand and value community. As human beings, we need each other, and we need to know how to cohabitate with each other. Indigenous cultures often cooperate well, but if needed, many have beautiful ways of achieving conflict resolution and creating respect among its community members. Importance is put on working together rather than looking at some flawed authority who is outside of the community and has no stake in participating in the community to solve its problems. Decolonization makes way for sovereignty, where we can be independent and make important decisions for ourselves, using a strategy that combines rationality and intuition, instead of dogmatic rules that see life through a binary lens. Decolonizing ourselves opens up space for both feminine and masculine energy to flow for a balanced approach to life. We do not own people or even land. We have no right, in quotation marks, to them. These are constructs humans have created in an effort to seek power. by letting people be free to find out who they truly are and what they have to contribute, to use the land that we own, in quotation marks, in a way that connects us to other beings, that supports them in some way, or makes space for them to enjoy it. That is decolonization. Decolonization releases us from structures that make us think that we have to see ourselves and the world around us in a particular way, which is usually exploitive. It gives us the freedom to be who we are. Freedom. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading a client who was frustrated because she had been single for a long time and wanted to be in a relationship. We chatted about that, and then I reminded her to take advantage of this time of being single and to build a life for herself that has meaning, that is based on the things that are most important to her. I encouraged her to enjoy her freedom and independence while she could, because once she is in a relationship, a lot of that goes away. In a relationship, we have to take into account someone else's desires and needs. And though nothing is wrong with that, it does take time and energy away from pursuing our individual goals. Now, her reply was, freedom is boring. And I laughed out loud. I told her that freedom is boring when you don't know what to do with it. If you spend your time pining away for something you do not have, you miss the opportunity to build things for yourself that make you feel fulfilled. It is never a good idea to focus too much on lack or scarcity. That is a colonizational, there's that word again, mentality. It is much more satisfying to focus on abundance and to be grateful for it. Focusing on abundance creates more abundance. First of all, when we think about what we have, we realize that we have most of what we need. The problem arises when we focus only on what we want. That automatically puts us in a space of lack. Desire can be a powerful thing, and if we let it control us instead of us controlling it, it will wreak havoc on our lives. Most of the time, what we want is out of our reach at the moment. So we put our energy into something that isn't present, something that isn't real. But when we take what we do have and recognize it, we feel a greater sense of peace and happiness. Then there is the universal law that what we focus on most comes to us most. In other words, if we are obsessed with scarcity, we will surround ourselves with scarcity. If we put our thoughts and energy into abundance, then the universe sends us more abundance. Don't just take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Spend, let's say, a week or so focusing on, thinking about, and being grateful for what you have in life. And not just material things, but intangible things as well. Things like love, things like your talents and abilities. You can even focus on your job, Even if you don't like your job, you have to admit that the benefits of being able to pay your mortgage or your rent is pretty damn nice. Focus on positive things that have happened to you in the past. Focus on things like that, and at the end of the week, see how you feel. Now, don't even bother to go in the other direction by focusing on what you don't have for a week to see how you feel, because I don't want to send anyone into depression. And we are all very well aware of what the feeling of obsessing over lack is like. We don't need to practice that anymore. Change your perspective and live your life. Decolonize your mind. You don't have to live according to someone else's expectations. Set yourself free. Follow your intuition. Do what makes sense to you rather than what you think others want you to do, even if it means that they will not be happy with your rebellion. In fact, usually that's a clear sign that what they really want is to control you. You will actually be doing the best thing possible by liberating yourself from that kind of tyranny. When we decolonize ourselves, we leave superficial knowledge and get back to what we know deep within ourselves. The meaningful things that we were taught or that we have picked up along the path of life come flooding back to us. We remember that life has deep meaning, and that meaning is rarely taught in formal education. We connect with the energy of the heart and use it to heal ourselves and open up to link with the energy of others. That heart energy gives us the understanding that we are all facing the same plight, which helps us have compassion for one another. Rather than trying to subjugate others, we cooperate with them and find ways to live in harmony with each other. We all have something valuable and unique to offer the world. And if we share our gifts with one another, we will create a magical world. Your sovereignty, your independence is your birthright. No one can truly take that away from you. Depraved minds can enslave your body and think that they own you, but they cannot enslave your mind unless you allow them to. Fight for your independence by holding on to your God-given rights. Get back to the basics of simply doing the right thing. The less complicated life is, the more satisfying it will be. It may take some time to rebuild your simple life, but at least it will be all yours. Today, energy is so connected. I feel I can reach across dimensions and pull myself right through. Face to face in the mirror of layers of time, one on top of the other, grids of reality as far as the eye can see. I want to reach and grab your hand too, show you, life after life, this is how we got here. There is no turning back. at least not for me. Forward trajectory. The past is for kindling. The future is real. I have seen it in the outline of my dreams. Where will I find you? Where will you be when I collapse those layers and set myself free? Following a path of fallen stars all the way to the moon. I saw you there waiting for me, but when I approached, you could not see. Lost in the past, afraid of the we, unaware that the future could ever exist. No hint that you knew the chance would be missed, so I circled you in time again. Perhaps when I come back around, the sky will no longer be on the ground, and we can ride moonbeams through space and sound like we did not so long ago. Today, energy is so connected. I know you feel me tickling fingers up your spine until I reach the crown of your head to start to remind of all that was said in the future of reality. I shouldn't have run when I had the chance, but the past was calling out for me to dance. Like a puppet on a string, I did as was told. Without understanding, all I had to do was be bold. Ignoring your plea, drifting off in a sea of subtle energy, searching in dimensions both near and far, until I forgot just who we are, life after life. This is how we got here. There is no turning back. The end is too near. Mirrors are cracking to reveal a single layer of time. How will you find me? How will you see? I am not the same one that I used to be, but neither are you. You have grown much taller. Your feet are walking on clouds. Will you feel me waiting for you? Will you know exactly what to do? When the grids open up and we all fall through, one after the other, as far as the ear can hear. Intrinsic directory. The past is right now. The future is today. I have seen it in the body of my soul. So, woman of my dreams, it is now time for our tarot card reading. And our query for today is how or what can we do to decolonize ourselves? And so I am being told that we need to work with a spread of 4 cards, and I'm laying those 4 cards out right now for us. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. Interesting 4 cards here. They're actually very powerful as well. I really love this spread. So let's get to it. Okay, so I'm looking at the first card. Our first card for this reading is the Justice card. And of course, this card comes up in a reading about decolonization. How do we decolonize ourselves? And what this card is telling me or telling us, because this card is not just, or this reading is not just for me, it's for all of us. This card is telling us that in order to decolonize ourselves, we have to seek a sense of justice. We have to seek that balance, the balance between what is right and what is just, and the balance between what is in our hearts and what has true depth and meaning. Seeking the balance between those two. And, especially in a time like today, the times we are living in now, where activism is certainly something that is very prevalent. People are looking for justice as it seems to be that things are crumbling around us. And I won't go into too much about that because, if you know me well and have listened to this podcast in the past, you know my feelings on the crumbling and the destruction of the past, of past structures and past established ways of being that have run their course. And anyway, so so as people are seeking justice, we often get into the mind and we often get into this fight for justice. But often what happens is, as we're fighting for justice, we forget about the heart. We forget about what will truly bring us justice in the world, which is the energy of the heart. That heart energy reaches into compassion. And by reaching into compassion, we find real justice. We find those deep levels of connection with other beings, which enables us to connect with a sense of true justice, that sense of really being able to create equality based on not what we think is right, but what we feel is best. Again, it's about that compassion and love that radiates out from our heart chakra. It's that heart energy that without forcing, without pushing, without fighting, that energy allows us to truly be just. It allows us to treat other beings in a way that is loving, in a way that, really creates justice in the world. Justice is all about making sure that everyone gets what they deserve, or at least what they need in order to survive, and knowing that they can have what they need without taking anything from us, and having an open enough heart to ensure that they get what they need, to advocate for others, to support others, and create an existence, create a world that allows for justice, allows for everyone to get what they need without having to struggle and fight, without having to worry about the greed and excess of others stealing from us. What I talked about before, balancing out the feminine and masculine energies, as so many indigenous cultures naturally know how to do. And so, yes, that is our first card, the justice card. Again, looking at that rational, strong sense of what is right and pairing it with what we know in our hearts is just. It's not about just mind energy. It's most importantly about the heart energy. So our next card is the Wheel of Fortune. And so how do we decolonize ourselves? How can we decolonize ourselves? The Wheel of Fortune is telling us that in order to, if we want to just decolonize ourselves, we have to think about fairness. Again, we're kind of going back to the Justice card, but looking at it more as an internal thing, not looking at it only as an external thing. So the Wheel of Fortune is telling us in this particular reading that if we want to decolonize ourselves, we have to find balance within ourselves and to be, to try to be to the best of our ability, to try to be a fully well-rounded human being. And of course, that's a challenge for all of us, especially with the things that we have going on in the world today. And of course, we all have been through our own kind of traumas or suffering, because that's the material world. That's what happens when you live on this planet. That's human life. However, in order for us to be well-rounded, we have to find a sense of healing. We have to do the work to heal so that we can transcend those traumas and that suffering that we have been through and will continue to go through. We have to find those internal tools that help us get through all of the sufferings. And not only get through and heal from those sufferings, but also learn from those sufferings, learn from those challenges in life. That's when we learn the most in life, is when we go through challenges. That's where we gain the most wisdom and the most strength. If you are a patron of this podcast, in our last episode of the podcast called Disappointed Woman, I talked very much about that, about what we learn from our disappointments and what we learn from our failures. And again, those are the times that we learn the most, not the times when we are successful and things are going our way. We don't learn much then. It's the times that are difficult, the times that we look at as failures, or, the times when we are disappointed. Those are the opportunities when we learn the most. So we have to find that internal balance, that internal sense of equanimity, to allow us to decolonize ourselves, to be able to listen to our hearts and to be able to listen to that internal wisdom, or even sources outside of us that are full of wisdom. We can't listen to them if we're in a state of constant pain, or a state of being shut down, or a state of extreme pain or suffering. In order for us to be able to connect with the wisdom inside of us and to connect with the wisdom even outside of us, we have to have healing, and we have to find that sense of balance. So the Wheel of Fortune in this particular reading is telling us that it's so important for us to be well-rounded. And once we are well-rounded within ourselves, then our perspective on the outside world also becomes well-rounded. We begin to see things. I'm thinking what comes to mind is that saying that's often attributed to Anais Nin. The saying goes, "We do not see things as they are. We see them as we are." So of course, if we haven't healed, if we are, still suffering through things, if we're still experiencing a lot of pain, then that absolutely clouds our vision and the way that we see the outside world. So again, the Wheel of Fortune in this particular reading is about healing and being well-balanced, well-rounded. So the next card that comes up for us in this reading is the Queen of Wands. And the Queen of Wands in this particular reading is telling us that if we want to decolonize ourselves, or the way to decolonize ourselves, is to once again go internal, tap into our own internal magic. We all have such beautiful energy inside of us, and we all have our own unique talents and gifts that come from inside of us. They're not outside of us. That energy comes from inside of us. And not only do we need to use those talents or that and gifts, that internal energy, not only do we need to tap into that internal energy, we also need to respect and value and honor that internal energy, because often as women, we are conditioned to not value the gifts that we have. In fact, we're often taught that the gifts that we have are not actually gifts. We're taught to devalue them, and we're taught to value things outside of ourselves. We're taught to value our external selves, our physical attributes. However, the most important, the most magical, the most valuable parts of ourselves are inside of ourselves. So we need to tap into that magic, and we need to use it. We need to value it so that we can use it in a way that's beneficial for the world around us and also for ourselves. So that is the Queen of Wands in this reading. And our final card of this reading is the King of Pentacles. So one thing, or how I want to distinguish between the last card, the Queen of Wands, all of those things that I was talking about, women having and valuing and connecting with and using our internal gifts. That is about using feminine energy. And now we're looking at a card, the King of Pentacles, which is about the magic of masculine energy, which we also have inside of us. We are, a combination of both of those energies. It's about yin and yang. It's about, expressing and understanding and balancing those energies within ourselves. And so the King of Pentacles is saying that if we want to decolonize ourselves, we have to balance out the magical, masculine energy that we have inside of us with the super magical, mystical, feminine energy. I'm partial to feminine energy, as you can tell. Yes, we have to balance that energy out, that feminine energy as well. We have to balance out both of those energies. And they are, so the wand in the last card is an expression of that being our own personal energy, because as women, we are the embodiment and manifestation of feminine energy, even though we also have masculine energy. The masculine energy shows up as pentacles because it's magical energy. Pentacles represents magic for us in this reading. But that magical energy, although it is also part of us, the wand is an example of it being our own natural tool, whereas the pentacles is also a natural tool for us, but it comes in a much more subtle way. So again, the King of Pentacles, how do we use that masculine energy to decolonize ourselves? Because often when we think of colonization is actually an expression of masculine energy. However, or I should say it's an over expression of masculine energy. It's not a balanced expression of masculine energy. And so, again, we need to balance out that energy with our feminine energy, which will keep it in a healthy state to be used in a healthy state. So we're not overusing masculine energy. We're also not overusing feminine energy either. But by keeping that balance of each, keeping them in balance with one another, it prevents us from overusing that masculine energy. And healthy masculine energy is not about domination. It's not about subjugation. Healthy masculine energy is energy that creates a foundation and a strong place, a strong container to hold that beautiful feminine energy that rises up and creates. Healthy masculine energy is about protection. It is about protection of justice. It is a protection of the rights that we are all born with. However, it's not about subjugating others to protect that energy. It is not about subjugating others to protect our rights. It's about finding balance with others. Again, masculine energy, even though we as women have that masculine energy, just like men also have a balance or have both feminine and masculine energy within themselves. Masculine energy in this particular reading is about the external. The Queen of Wands card was about our internal energy. In this particular reading, the King of Pentacles is about external energy and how we actually manifest that energy, how we actually use and send out that energy to the outside world, how we show up to the outside world, who we present ourselves to be. And in order to present ourselves in a healthy way, which is protection of our energies, of other people, like I said, advocating for other people. The way to do that is to show up in our healthy masculine energy. So, yes, those are our 4 cards that are teaching us about decolonization. They are the answer to our query about how we can decolonize ourselves, which will in turn help to decolonize the world around us. So I hope that you found something of value in our reading this week. And if you have any questions at all about anything that I've said in this reading, please feel free to reach out to me. Please send me an email at womanonherpath@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you will return for the next episode of Woman on Her Path. If you are a Patreon member, I will talk to you next week, or possibly even in a couple of days. If you listen to the podcast on other platforms, I will talk to you in a month. Either way, I'm looking forward to reconnecting with you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this show. I hope you found something useful. Like everything in life, we can take what we need and leave the rest. Please feel free to contact me with comments or questions at womanonherpath@gmail.com.